When you turn on your tap for a glass of water, you probably figure it's just, well, water. But the journey it takes to make it safe to drink is this incredible chemical battle, and it has some seriously surprising consequences. So let's dive into the unseen science that's happening right in your tap water.
Okay, so every single day, water treatment plants are fighting an invisible war. They're up against all sorts of pathogens, the nasty bacteria and viruses that can make us really sick. And to win this war, they have to rely on a super powerful weapon: disinfection.
But here's a question that scientists are really starting to dig into. When you kill off all the germs, what are you creating in their place? It turns out cleaning water isn't just about taking things out.
Yeah, the very act of disinfecting water actually creates a whole new cocktail of chemicals. They're called disinfection byproducts, or DBPs for short. And get this, while we've identified over 700 of them, we're still just scratching the surface of what they all do. This brings us to a major scientific showdown. A brand new study decided to put two different disinfectants head-to-head to see exactly what kind of chemical footprint each one leaves behind. In one corner, we've got the reigning champion, calcium hypochlorite. It's your classic chlorine-based disinfectant. We know it works, but we also know it creates those chlorinated byproducts. And in the other corner, we have the challenger, ozone. It's a powerful, chlorine-free alternative that's supposed to be amazing at destroying biofilms. Those tough, slimy shields that bacteria build to protect themselves. So on paper, ozone looks really, really promising.
So the researchers set up their experiment. They took some synthetic tap water and they treated it with both disinfectants. Then they used some incredibly sensitive technology to see what was really happening on a molecular level.
And what they found is that cleaning water is, well, it's less like filtering and more like cooking. You're not just taking ingredients out, you're adding new ones that react and transform everything, and you end up creating a completely new molecular soup. Now, I know this chart looks complicated, and honestly, that's the whole point. Every single dot you see represents a different type of molecule. This shows us that even before any treatment, this synthetic tap water is already a chemical soup with over 5,400 different molecules. This is our starting point.
And this just illustrates the results so perfectly. Look on the left. That's the water treated with good old chlorine. It's now packed with new molecules that have chlorine atoms attached. But now, look at the right, the water treated with ozone. Whoa, it created a totally different signature, a huge spike in brand new molecules containing sulfur. They are two completely different chemical fingerprints.
So here's the crucial takeaway. Chlorine did what we thought it would do. It chlorinated the water. But OXONE, it changed the chemistry in a completely different way, creating a massive increase. We're talking over 60% in these sulfur-containing compounds. It also seemed to be way more aggressive, literally shattering existing molecules into smaller, simpler pieces. Okay, so creating a new molecular soup is interesting, but here's the billion-dollar question. Are these new chemicals harmful? To find that out, the researchers moved on to the next phase, testing these different water samples on living human cells.
They use this really cutting-edge technique called the cell painting assay. Just think of it like a high-tech stress test for cells. They use these special fluorescent dyes to literally light up 8 different parts of a cell, like the nucleus, the mitochondria, all the important stuff. This creates this incredibly detailed fingerprint that shows exactly how the cell is holding up in its new chemical environment.
The scientists then took all these cellular fingerprints and mapped them out. And as you can see, most of the treatments are all clustered together pretty tightly, which means they had relatively similar effects on the cells. But then, look way over there on the right, that red cluster. One sample was a massive, massive outlier, causing a totally dramatic and unique stress response in the cells. And that was the water treated with a high dose of ozone.
Yeah, that outlier was pointing to something pretty dramatic. The promising chlorine-free alternative seemed to be having a much, much more intense effect on the cells than traditional old chlorine. So which one of these molecular soups was actually more toxic to human cells when it was used at a high concentration, the kind of level you'd need to kill those really tough biofilms?
The answer was absolutely shocking. This chart shows the cell viability, basically how many cells survived the treatment. The water treated with a high dose of chlorine, that's on the left, had almost no effect. The cells were fine. But the water treated with a high dose of OXONE, on the right, my gosh, it just wiped out the vast majority of the cells. Just let that sink in for a second.
The new, advanced, chlorine-free disinfectant, the one that really seemed like a better alternative, was actually significantly more toxic to human cells, at least at the concentration needed for that heavy-duty cleaning. So what on earth was happening? The researchers took a closer look. These images show the cell's internal support structure, its cytoskeleton. And under that high-dose OXONE treatment, this crucial cellular skeleton was literally collapsing, causing the cells to basically fall apart from the inside. And the chemical culprit? Well, all the evidence points right back to that unique chemical fingerprint we saw a minute ago. The analysis strongly suggests that these toxic effects were being driven by that massive spike in new sulfur-containing byproducts that were created only by the ozone treatment. So, what does a surprising result like this really mean for the big picture of how we clean our water? Now, it is so important to understand that this research isn't saying OXONE is bad, not at all. It's still a super effective disinfectant. What this discovery really reveals is the incredibly delicate balancing act of water treatment. You're always dealing with this trade-off between microbial safety, killing the germs, and chemical safety, not creating harmful byproducts. You know, the study's authors put it perfectly. They said that aggressive disinfection strategies can create these complex chemical mixtures with negative effects. It just highlights the absolute critical need to balance killing the bugs we know are dangerous with the unknown risks of the chemicals we might be creating in the process. And it leaves us with this huge question for the future of public health. As we develop more and more powerful ways to clean our world, how do we make sure we win the war on germs without accidentally creating brand new chemical enemies to take their place?